Hey guys, and welcome back to On the Grid with Robbo. This week we're going to have a look at mixing this podcast opener that we started last time around. Now it's just an opener for an imaginary podcast that I came up with. And we did it in Audacity only because I realized that there's a lot of podcasters out there using Audacity, and for good reasons. It's free to begin with. And secondly, there's no reason why you shouldn't be using it. It does a pretty good job for just putting together a podcast. So I thought it might be useful for you guys if I did it in Audacity. So it's pretty simple. It just started with this little whoosh that got us into our music bed here. And then this space was left blank for us to put some highlights of the episode from that week that we're putting together. And then it goes into our voiceover from a well-known Australian voiceover guy who's a good mate of mine, a guy called Paul Pidioni. And then it goes into this little talk bed thing, which is where the host of the show will come in and introduce the show. And as he's speaking, when we're putting an episode together, we will fade this music off underneath him as he gets into the episode. So the whole point is to sort of get us selling the show to begin with, obviously. So the first opportunity we have, finding a really good highlight that's going to grab people's attention, make them want to hang around, put that into the opener there at the top. Then we're going to do the business end of things. We're going to introduce our sponsor. We're going to introduce the show and anything else you might like to do. You might like to solicit people to subscribe or ring the bell or whatever else it is that you need them to do. And then we're going to go into the episode itself with our host, who'll be obviously taking the reins from there and guiding us through the episode. So what we're going to do this week is we're actually going to mix it. So last time around, we basically did all the editing. We got it all in place nicely and we tidied up Paul's voiceover and picked the best bits from different takes and put them together to create his voiceover for the intro. So this week, what we're going to do is we're going to mix it and get it all sounding cohesive. So it all sounds like one piece of audio as opposed to a voiceover slapped over a piece of music with a funny little effect at the front, which is effectively what it is. But what we're going to do is sonically craft that so it sounds like it's all one piece. So just to remind us, let's just have a quick listen through.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast.
And there we go into our opening piece of music. So effectively, just quickly, if I show you what we've done here in terms of a mix so far, is just to sort of bring the music down underneath Paul as he's talking here, and then it fades up for that little musical crescendo, which fills in this gap in his voice over here. Bring it back down for him as he introduces the show, and then bring it back up for that last crescendo, which is obviously going to be the introduction to our host of the show. So the first thing to do really is to get our voice sitting in that music. So we don't want him to sound too separate from it. We don't want him to be buried by it either. So it's finding that nice balance. And we sort of want to give him sonically some crunch and some nice brightness and stuff to make him sit in with that music. So, and also make him a little bit louder in places, because if you look at what's going on sonically, and you can do that by looking at the waveform, which is obviously a graphical illustration of what the audio looks like, you can see that there's these really high peaks here, we call them peaks, and these really low troughs. So effectively that's really loud information, and when we get down to these really low things, that's really soft information. So what we want to try and do now is bring those closer together. So we haven't got high and low lows. We bring them a bit closer together, which means that the whole signal can be stronger, because at the moment, if we turn this up too loud, these peaks are going to distort. So what we want to do is we want to bring those down, which means that we can effectively turn everything up overall, which means that these softer spots will become louder. And I know that's a really confusing concept, and I will do in the next few weeks, I will do an episode on compression and how it works and what it does. But in a nutshell, that's effectively what we're trying to do, is to bring those higher peaks down so we can turn up the volume of that track overall and make it louder. So the first thing we're going to do here is add some compression. And the one that I kind of recommend for people who are starting out and don't really understand compression and don't want to get overawed by a whole bunch of terms and plugs and knobs and stuff that you're really not sure what to do with, is to use something like this from Waves. But there's a million of them out there. They're actually a model of a compressor called an LA2A. Now, Waves call there's the CLA2A. But the reason I like this is because effectively, if we ignore this other stuff, which you can do, there's only two knobs that we need to worry about. The one here on the right, peak reduction, that's basically how hard the compressor is working. So how much are we squashing these peaks down? And the other one is gain, which is how much volume we're now adding to that track. So how loud are we turning up that after it's been compressed? So if you look here, you can see this meter, and what this meter is showing us at the moment is it's showing us how hard the compressor is working. Now, sometimes in like for radio imaging, for example, there might be 2 or 3 compressors on a voiceover track, or 2 compressors on a track and maybe 1 more on a bus. But what we're going to do here today is we're really only going to use 1 compressor. Well, we're going to use a compressor and a limiter, but for the sake of the argument, this is the only compressor that we're going to use today. So we can afford to give it a bit more of a squash, and you'll probably find, I'm guessing we'll probably it'll be working mostly in this sort of -3 to -7, -10 range here. And then what that will allow us to do is to sort of turn it up a bit louder. So let's just play the audio here. Let me see if I can get it to loop up, and let's see how we go. Let's just go in here. Like this.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast. Get ready.
So what you can see here is that this is working reasonably hard for compression. But as I said, the nice thing that I like about the CLA2A is that the LA2A is that it can work hard and you don't necessarily hear it working too much. And the other thing that I'm doing here is adjusting the gain. I'm just watching my meters up here and making sure that it's not distorting or sort of jumping up into the red there too much, because that's the last thing we want. So let's just have one more listen to that.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast.
So I think we're in a pretty good place there. We sort of seem to be sitting nicely on top of the music. In fact, I think we can maybe just turn it down a tiny bit. Let's just have a quick look.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery.
So that's pretty good, I think. So the next thing we might pop in here is a EQ. And again, it's a Waves EQ. In fact, what we might do go down to the REQ down here. And we'll throw that in. And okay, so effectively, again, without diving into too much detail, this is showing us the entire frequency range that's available to us. So the low frequencies down here, so all the low information down here, and all that bright sort of sparkly information up the top, and then it obviously works its way through in the middle there. So if I play Paul's voiceover, you'll be able to see the display and what it's doing.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery.
So you can see there how that's working. You can see that it's showing us the entire spectrum there. Now, the first thing we really always do is to get rid of everything that's way down here in the bottom sort of range of that, because effectively some of that stuff is so low that we can't even hear it. And what that's going to do, if we leave it there, is it's going to, when it comes into play with the music, where there is a lot of low-end information as well, that's just going to muddy the whole thing up. And we really don't need it for Paul to sound good. So what we're going to do is we're going to find a spot there where we sort of feel like we can get away with chopping it all off, and then pull it back just a touch. So let's just have a quick listen and see what we can do.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise.
So you can hear it working
the cake
there.
shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows.
So you can see there we've chopped off a fair bit. I mean, that's up around close to 100 hertz there, which is sort of, still very low. But it's really not important for it to be there. It's not affecting the quality of Paul's voice. So we're sort of getting rid of a whole bunch of low-end information that we don't want. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing on the high end here. So we'll turn on the filter there like that. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start up the top here and just have a listen and see how far we can bring it down until we hear it working, and then pull it back just a touch. Oops. Let's try that again. Here we go.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows.
So that sounds pretty good. And then what we're going to do here is, again, around these low mids here, we're just going to scoop out some information there too, just to sort of make him get rid of some of that muddy stuff that's just sort of making him sound a bit thick, and let the bass of the music do what it's doing instead. So let's just have a quick listen here. One of these days.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred.
So that's pretty good in and of itself. The place to start with EQ is always getting rid of the things you don't want before you start adding anything else in. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Is by sort of, because EQ works almost as opposites. Like if you take away low end information, that's similar to adding high frequency stuff, because you're chopping, the low end information out. So you're making those highs more prevalent anyway. So I always sort of do the subtractive, and we call it subtractive because we're taking stuff away, subtractive EQing first, and then I just sort of see what I need. Now, I do want him to sort of be a little bit brighter overall. So the next thing we could do is turn this into what's called a high shelf. And as you can see, that's sort of working on everything that's sort of high up above. And at the moment, we're at about 5K. So that's going to increase everything above there. So let's just have a listen and see how much of that we're going to need.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery.
So that's pretty good. And then we can see here, around here, that's sort of going to be the character of Paul's voice. That's going to be where the crunch and that sort of throaty sort of sound is, that gives him that gives his voice the quality that he has. So let's just play around here a bit and see what we can do there.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast. Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast.
So let's now have a listen through that, and let's turn it on and off and just see how we're going and how much of a difference we've made.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast. Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice...
So you can hear that we've sort of, all that muddy sort of confusing stuff that's down the low end has been cleared up. And we've just given him a bit of a sort of high-end tickle to make him cut through that music just a little bit more. So the next thing to look at is his S's are very sibilant. So sibilance is that sort of sizzly sort of sound as he's talking, and that's because we've sort of, well, firstly because of the microphone that he's used, and that's fine. I mean, sibilance happens in any microphone. I'm suggesting that he would probably be on something that's got a bit of a hyped top end. So what we're going to do now is just sort of try to control that a little bit. And you can sort of see it represented here. That frequency range there is sort of around where the S's occur. So we can fix that by adding, well, you can fix it a number of ways. You could do it with EQ, but because EQ is a constant thing, it's going to affect parts of his read that we don't want it to affect. So we can go in and we can add in a de-esser, and now there's a million different ones. And for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to use the waves one again. And a good place to start with this sort of stuff is that you'll find that the presets usually start in a pretty good place. So you can see we've got male S and male sh here. So the sound that we're hearing that we want to try and fix is the S sound, the really S stuff. So if we start there, we can move our slider around now and sort of find where we want it to work.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast. Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast.
So if we turn it off now, you can hear the difference that we've made. And let's just try that again.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery.
So that sort of high frequency stuff that's sort of hurting your ears that was there before we put the de-esser on is now gone. So I think we're in a pretty good place. Now, the last thing I'm going to add is a limiter. And what a limiter does is it sets a level that nothing is allowed to go past. So we're going to set that reasonably high, just underneath distortion, but we're going to put it there. And what that's going to do is anything that sneaks through that could possibly clip and distort on the way out is going to be stopped by this limiter. And it's not going to be, but it's not going to be working so hard that we're squashing it hard and hearing it work. And there's a 1,000 limiters out there, but sticking with the wave seam, let's stick with that. Let's go down to the L3 here, which is sort of a pretty good one for voice. And again, you'll see it working here. So threshold is where the audio is being caught. So at what level is this brick wall being set? So how high is the audio allowed to go before it's going to stop it working? And the out ceiling is basically, again, the volume. How loud is it coming out of the compressor? Now, again, the nice thing about this is you don't really need to play with much else here to get a good sound out of it. So you can just play with these two and really forget anything that's going over here. Yes, maybe the release time, if you do hear it working, but I usually find with this that that's not necessary with voice too much. So let's just have a quick listen.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This.
So you can see over here, it's only flicking on and off, and it's barely working. So it's just stopping some of these higher peaks getting through. So let's just have one more quick look at that.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast.
So there we go. So that's sort of sitting in there quite nicely now. So let's just turn our attention to the music for a minute. And what I want to do is I just want to see how we're sitting with Paul.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast.
So the thing here, I think the mix here, I think we can probably bring up our music just a little bit. Here, just in here. So I think here we can probably just work this up a touch, I reckon. Like that.
Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast. Get ready for a show.
Right, so I think that's sounding pretty good. Let's have a quick listen here. Other way. Take that out.
Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every Get ready for a show that's as sweet as it is surprising. Brought to you by Fred's Big Surprise, the cake shop where every slice is a delicious mystery. What's inside? Only Fred knows. This is everybody's favorite podcast.
So I think we might almost be there. Now, I don't usually process my openers and stuff like that as an overall mix, so like an overall compression or anything like that, because when I'm mixing the show out, I'm adding compression and sometimes a little bit of EQ and things like that over the entire mix. So I find that if I compress here, that it usually sounds a little bit too compressed on the other end. So I usually just sort of leave this very sort of open and uncompressed. If you wanted to, you could add sort of a little bit of compression, just like a glue, which is sort of going to make everything sit together a bit nicely. But as I said, I kind of find that 9 times out of 10, I don't need to do that. So effectively, what I would do here is I'd pretty much just bounce this out now. And sort of label it up and store it away and sort of use it as I needed it, obviously. So look, if you have any questions, Robbo at justaskrobbo.com. If you would like to know more and would like to learn a bit more about the processes that I've used here, you can jump onto justaskrobbo.com and have a look around. There's a bunch of different trainings and stuff that are available through the website that might be able to help you. So I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that you will give it a go. And if you do, I'd really love to hear your results too. If you do end up putting something together, please send it to me. I'd love to hear it. So I hope that's been helpful, and I will see you next week with another edition of On the Grid.